Hello everyone. In this video I will explain difference between two-tier and three-tier architecture. When we talk about database access, these architectures are the most commonly used in application development, desktop or web-based. So let's see one by one. So before discussing these architecture in terms of computer, let's take a real life examples. So we are explaining first two-tier architecture. Let's take this is a guy. The name of this guy is Mr. X, and this guy is having a food cart. Uh, so as you can see, this person wants to start this business. So starting this business is not much hard. He has to spend little amount to start this business. Now, so we can say the advantage of this food cart is that this is very simple to implement. And now why we are calling this two-tier architecture? Because when a client comes to Mr. X, client directly interact with the X. So client who is asking for food, and Mr. X is the one who serving food to the client. So this is the scenario. Like let's say this is the client, Mr. X is the person who is serving food to them. So it's a direct communication. Client and X is a serving food, so we are assuming X is a server. So client is directly interacting with server. So here there is no middleware. So we are having two we can say that we are having two layers, client and server. Now so far we have seen advantages. It's very simple to implement. There is no much complexity. Now let's assume a situation. So in this situation, if the number of customer increased, this is only one person, and uh, he will be panicking. He will be panicking, and he won't be able to serve all those customers at a time. And it might be possible that he won't be able, and he will say he will give food to someone and forget to take money from that person. So that situation actually create a chaos for him. So a two-tier architecture in which the client directly interact with server, situation will be worst if the number of customer will increase. So this issue is actually also known as scalability issues. So now we will see the two-tier architecture in terms of computer. So what is two-tier architecture? We are having a database server which is running on another machine, and we are having a client middleware API. These API actually used to connect to database. So client is directly connected to database server. So let's take an example. Let's start a Oracle server on a system, and on another system we will write a application. Let's take example of Java. We will write a code in Java to fetch some data from that Oracle system. So we are having a client machine, we are having a server machine. On server, Oracle server is running. On client machine, Java application is running. So that application is fetching data from database. So this is an example of two-tier architecture. So we are having two layer, client which is known as application layer, and server side which is known as database layer. So advantage of this architecture, it's very simple to implement. We have to start a database server, and client can interact directly to the database server. Now the problem, what is the problem? As the number of customer increase, as the number of client will increase, load on this server will also increase, and efficiency and the performance will be dropped. So for less number of client, this architecture is okay. But if you are intended to develop a application which serve a huge number of customer, in that case three-tier architecture is more suitable, or a multi-tier architecture. So let's see now three-tier architecture. So these are the bullet point of the two-tier architecture. Advantage: simplicity, very simple to implement, and disadvantage or the issues? Scalability. Okay, so now we are taking three-tier architecture. So this is the same person X. He earned a huge amount of money and he started his own restaurant. Now in this restaurant, he has hired some chef, he hired some waiters. So now the problem, what is the disadvantage of this three-tier architecture is that this person has to spend a huge amount of money in order to start this restaurant or cafe. So if we compare amount of money which is you invested for this restaurant with amount of money invested for a food cart, so this one is more as compared to food cart. So starting a food cart is easier than starting a restaurant. So we can say disadvantage, there is a lot of complexity. Now how this restaurant things works, as you all aware of, if a customer is coming to restaurant, he will give order to waiter. Now waiter will forward this order to the kitchen. So he will take this order and tell to the chef that this is the requested food. So this customer is actually interacting with waiter. Okay, the customer is not directly interacting with the chef. So who is the service provider here? Chef is the service taker and the waiter is working as a middleware. So instead of directly interacting with chef, customers are interacting with a middleware or a management layer, which is a waiter. If they want to give some order, they will call waiter. If they have to pay bill, they will call the waiter. So waiter is actually a middleware. Now, how this scalability issue is solved here? Now, let's assume in this restaurant a huge number of customers came. So, what this waiter will do? This waiter will take order from every customer one by one, and they will pass this order to the kitchen. So, here the chaos will not be created. All customers will take their order one by one, and management layer will be responsible for billing them and providing food for them. So in three-tier architecture, except client and server, we are having a middleware. So in computer terminology, the architecture actually looks like we are having a client, we are having a database server, but this client is actually not interacting directly with database server. We are having one more server between them. So what is the example of three-tier architecture? Let's assume uh, you are hosting a website on a machine, so web server will be running on that machine and a client is opening that machine, and that machine actually storing some data on a database server, and that database server running on another machine. So if a client is requesting anything, that request actually forwarded to the web server. Now this web server actually process that request, check whether any data has to be fetched from database. If yes, it will fetch data from database and then it will forward to the client. So here we are having three tier, that's why this is known as three-tier architecture. So here if you can see the first tier, this is the client or the presentation, how data will be presented to client and how request will be sent to the web server. Logic tier, this is actually our web server, how this web server will convert request into the corresponding query will be sent to database server, server will send the response, and web server actually process that response and forward it to the client. So this is the three-tier architecture. These are the bullet point. Advantage in three-tier, performance is increased. But the disadvantage, we can say the complexity. In order to start a three-tier architecture application, we need to have a extra machine for running a web server. Thank you very much.